Let's jump right into this. We got some hot takes going on here for the Ring the Bell this week. So what do you got? Let's start with you this week because I always go first. What do you got?
Yeah, but I want you to start because I need you to start.
Oh, wow. Come on. Seriously? All right, so my hot take for this week, obviously, is focusing around Brock Lesnar and the rumors going around that Cain Velasquez or Tyson Fury is going to be fighting Brock Lesnar for the title at WrestleMania. And that's just one of those things where, I don't really understand. You got all these great wrestlers, you got all this great talent on the roster, and you're wasting it with, I think the UFC and the MMA and all the boxing type people, that brings attractions during the regular season, so to speak, when talent may be low or ratings may be low. But when you come to WrestleMania and you have the viewers, why are you wasting it on that type of moment? Put someone that you're trying to build as a wrestler, someone you're trying to build you're trying to put them over on the crowd, or you're trying to build a. You're trying to build, an audience with someone more within the organization, and not someone that's coming in off of MMA or UFC. They do this every time, and I think Brock Lesnar was a success, but it's just not. Have we seen enough of Tyson Fury? Have we seen enough of Cain Velasquez for them to be main eventing for the world title at WrestleMania? It just doesn't make any sense. And it's just a classic WWE product that's just not what it should be. And, and it's just classic stuff that I think WWE just needs to get away from. And it's just not good. That's my hot take for this episode. So how does that dive into yours?
Well, mine has nothing to do with that, as I just came up with one. I remember I was watching Raw. I think that's where he was on. But basically, my hot take is stop bringing back these older wrestlers just to have them fizzle out after a month. And this goes to Sheldon Benjamin. I was watching him in a match against Aleister Black. It was on Raw. And I'm just like, whoa, they didn't even give him an entrance. So as soon as they don't give the guy an entrance, they're like, well, this guy doesn't really matter. He just comes straight, cut off, commercial break.
Right.
B, he's fighting somebody who they're pushing, and you could tell that they're pushing. And C, I would say Sheldon Benjamin's no legend, but he's a guy that has had a storied career in wrestling.
Right.
And I would consider him, close to a legend if he had more opportunities, maybe. But I think WWE needs to get away from signing these older guys just to have them get a huge reaction for like a month and then have nothing to do with them. And I have a feeling now, because they brought back Jon Morrison on SmackDown, that's exactly what's going to happen to him, and that's exactly what's going to happen to anybody that is... What?
Keep going. I'm about to go on a major rant in a minute with someone who's not here.
It's about to happen to Jon Morrison. I think it's going to happen to basically any veteran that comes back after being gone for a long period of time in the WWE. I would say the one person that hasn't had that treatment is Rey Mysterio, and he's had a really good run with it being back. But I'm sick and tired of seeing WWE bring back these guys just to bury them a month later.
Yeah, that's what they're doing, and that's what they're going to do with Jon Morrison. Before you know it, you're going to have Jon Morrison that, he's great. He has a big return for the first couple minutes in the first couple matches, and then all of a sudden they're just not going to they're just going to get rid of him after, like look at Matt Hardy. He's further down on my list. We'll get into some news with Matt Hardy later, but look at Matt Hardy. Look at the Hardys. They came in, they were great for the first couple weeks, and out the door.
Now
see you
gone.
Later. Bye-bye. And it's the same thing with Shelton Benjamin. But, I think at the end of the day, a lot of these wrestlers understand what their positions are. Do we really think Shelton Benjamin, when he signed with WWE, do you really think that he was going to be a major...
I agree, but he's also been off TV for, I feel like 3 months.
Right.
When was the last time he was on TV? He was in like a freaking cameo where the last time I remember he was in a cameo where he was called Senor Benjamin by Matt Hardy, and then like a cameo where he was just looking up in the sky. Like he was high as shit or something like that. But it just makes no sense to me. Their purpose, if they're gonna be a guy backstage, then make him be backstage only.
Right.
Instead of bringing them back to be completely irrelevant on WWE. I think it hinders the superstar more than it hinders the show, obviously, and I think it tarnishes their legacy.
Right. Hey, Steve, can you do me a favor? Can you do a sound check while we're doing this on your phone? Make sure we're good. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's I think these wrestlers.
We're good. Sounds on.
I'm getting whatever echoing, so I want to make sure it's not that we're not echoing. When Tyler talks, to make sure. Talk, Tyler.
Check. 1 2 1 2.
We good? But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think they have so much talent on their roster that you kind of have to assume that they can only. But that's and what kills me is that why you have people like it. Kind of your hot take kind of ties in with my hot take a little bit, where like you have these wrestlers that you're shooting down, but yet you're bringing in Tyson Fury and you're bringing in Cain Velasquez, and I know that they provide a lot. I know that they're going to provide.
But I think that's the biggest difference between WWE and everybody else is that they're more geared towards sports entertainment rather than wrestling. They're more geared towards the big spectacle, the big pop, the big attraction. They don't really care. I mean, honestly, the way it's viewed to me is they don't really care, about a wrestler's 3 months from now. They care about what the wrestler is going to provide to them right now. And if the guy that's coming in right now is going to give them the most money, then that's what they're going to do. But then again, in turn, later on down the road, that hinders them from expanding upon that superstar.
Right, I agree with you. All right, so that's the hot takes for that. Remember, you're watching the Ring the Bell podcast here on Insane Games TV. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, WWE is going to. They're so overwhelmed with so many wrestlers that they keep signing all these people. Like you come to the point where did they really need to sign Shelton Benjamin? Maybe not at this point. Do they really need to sign Jon Morrison right now? Maybe. I mean, you're at the point where how many wrestlers are really out there that are going to make a triumphant return? Besides maybe CM Punk, that he's already kind of made
John
one.
Cena.
John Cena. I mean, but like I'm talking like people that have gone years without a return. You know what I mean? Like you're losing. You don't have that many of them anymore. And it's kind of like they're signing so many people. You're signing so many different people that it's just crazy. And I agree. I think both our hot takes are kind of meshed together, and that just the overall personnel of what they're doing, it just doesn't make any sense. And
in building upon that, actually, I was thinking the other day, like they're taking 3 brands, NXT, SmackDown, and Raw, and pulling wrestlers from each of those brands to be in the Royal Rumble coming up. And it's just like, how are they going to, like, they're going to need 50 guys, like 40 guys in the Royal Rumble instead of 30. Like, I feel like 30 is not even going to be enough because, like, some of the guys that are in the Royal Rumble don't even make sense. Like, if you're going to fill a spot with Eric Rowan over someone that's more relevant than him on Raw / SmackDown / NXT, I mean, you just have to be very picky with who you're going to be putting in the Royal Rumble, because you have so many wrestlers now, because you have so many brands. It's not like it used to be back in the day where 30 guys was enough and you were barely getting by with 30 guys. Now it's just like 30 guys, that's not enough. You might need some more if you're going to put all the wrestlers in there to be relevant.
And of course,
or irrelevant.
You say that, and then you have all these wrestlers, and the Royal Rumble's stupid. They can barely fill it. They got all these people available to them, and then they got these stupid people that come in the Royal Rumble, and it's just like, why are they even there? You got so many people that aren't even on.
I feel like they should also have guys that are going to be in the Royal Rumble that are meant to get thrown out, like within seconds. Those guys that are just there to fill a spot, to put someone over. That makes sense, but.
Right.
They have so many. Those guys make sense because you need those people to make the Royal Rumble what it is. But when you have so many wrestlers and you have 3 brands and you're pulling from those, and that's basically 10 people per brand, and you're trying to push those guys over before WrestleMania in the Royal Rumble. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they fill it strategically,
Now,
and probably they won't fill it strategically. They'll probably just put guys in just for the fuck of it.
Have they officially announced that NXT is going to have a
They said it on Raw.
Okay, so they did. Okay, I think I missed that.
The wrestlers were saying, they said it numerous times. They said, you know, I'm going to be the first person from Raw, SmackDown, NXT, or whatever the case may be. There was I remember 3 times specifically where they said that NXT was going to have guys that were going to be in the Royal Rumble. So maybe they only have a few from NXT, or maybe they have 10, or maybe they have more.
Well, I mean, I gotta imagine. I mean, you're talking 30 roster spots between 3 shows. I mean, they're gonna have to be. That's not an easy. There should be a real. There should be a lot of good wrestlers not in the Royal Rumble, because you know.
Right, and that's why filling the spot with Brock Lesnar doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Like I don't understand. I mean, unless it leads to a bigger, a bigger storyline. And with that, let's jump right into some of the current news for the week. You know, on Raw, they announced Brock Lesnar is going to be in the Royal Rumble. Paul Heyman to Raw, and Brock Lesnar came out beginning of Raw and announced that he's going to take part in Monday Night Raw, number 1 spot for the Royal Rumble. I mean, I gotta imagine there's a storyline there.
I think that's an interesting storyline. It happens almost every year where they put the big guy at number 1 and he has to go through all the adversity of the Royal Rumble, yada yada yada. I just don't understand because it's never really been done where the champion has had to wrestle in the Royal Rumble, besides the one time we went to the Royal Rumble in Orlando when Roman Reigns was in there and he had to actually wrestle for the championship. But that's the only time I ever remember a champion having to wrestle in the Royal Rumble, because typically they're fighting for their championship during the pay-per-view that then leads into WrestleMania. So It's kind of interesting. It's kind of weird, but it just, to me, it doesn't make sense because you're taking away from someone else that might be worthy.
No, I agree, and I think I'm hoping that if they're gonna waste a spot on Brock Lesnar, especially number 1 in the Royal Rumble, that there's a very good storyline behind it. I'm hoping it's not dumb. Yeah. And
I assume that there is.
Right, I hope so.
There always
because like we were just talking about 30 roster spots between NXT now, SmackDown, and Raw. That's not many spots for an overall roster of the company. That's probably 100 plus deep. I mean, they got a lot of roster spots. So to fill that in with 30 and to give the first one to
Well, I mean, you
Brock
got to think,
Lesnar,
they're also doing the women's Royal Rumble too, so that's another 30. But I mean, for the men's, there's a lot of wrestlers in the company.
Can they fill the women's one? I think last year they was stretched pretty. I mean, last time they were borderline.
They're probably going to pull a lot from NXT. They're probably going to pull everybody they possibly can from Raw and SmackDown. So, and honestly, now that I think about it, that's probably why they're pulling them from NXT for the men's, because they planned on doing it for the women since they didn't think that they were going to fill it. So now they're like, well, if we're doing it for women's, let's do it for the men's too.
Right. No, I think I hope there's a storyline there, and I think the women's one. I think now now that you're throwing NXT in with all I love the fact that WWE has the 3 brands, and I love how they're treating NXT like SmackDown and Raw. I like that whole concept. I liked it back during Survivor Series. So now that and I think what also helps now that you include them as one of the top 3 brands, you're kind of getting yourself to where you can fill those spots. Like last year, remember last year. NXT wasn't a major brand, so it was kind of like NXT wrestlers normally weren't in the Royal Rumble. So now that they are, you can kind of it's easier to fill that full 30 spot, mainly for the women's, because obviously there's not as many as the men. But I think they can overall fill the 30 with the women's now. So I mean, I think you may see. I think you're going to see a better women's Royal Rumble match as well, with now that they have NXT involved from a bigger standpoint. Matt Hardy announced this week. Matt Hardy's contract's up March 1st. Jeff Hardy's contract goes a little bit longer due to injury and wellness and him getting healthier on the side. So that brings up some interesting storylines. I don't know if you've been following Matt Hardy on social media at all a little bit, but he's kind of basically all but indicated he's done with WWE come March 1st. and that he's building his character up to wherever he goes after, and we can only assume that he's going to end up at AEW. I mean, what other prospects are there besides New Japan, or I guess he can go to the Indies and
Ring of Honor.
But I mean, I guess I doubt he's going to Impact. If anyone even still goes to Impact, but they are still around. But I think it's going to be either New Japan or AEW. Most likely AEW. I think we read a while ago or heard a while ago that AEW was limiting the amount of people that they're coming on, and they're happy with what they have, but they're going to shell money out for Matt Hardy. Let's be serious.
Right.
They're going to shell the money out to get Matt Hardy and to get the Broken or the Woken storyline, whatever one's under trademark with Matt. They're going to work hard to get that over. I think that'd be great for AEW. I think it'll be a great addition. Some new storylines, some new content for them. But what's your thought on it? You're much more of a Matt Hardy fan than I am. So, I mean, what do you?
Yeah, actually, Matt Hardy was one of my guys that I had going over to AEW from our last week's segment of who we thought. I did a second one just because I knew people would have thought I was going to say Matt Hardy because I bring up Matt Hardy. It seems like it every week. But no, I think it would be good for wrestling especially for Matt Hardy if he goes over to AEW. I think it makes a lot of sense. And it would be good for wrestling as a whole because with a guy like that, he has so many ideas that not only for his character but for wrestling as a whole that he can make it wrestling that is better across the landscape. Add a little bit of disparity across everything that's going on in wrestling. Add another element. There are people that he could have feuds with right away over in AEW that are a little bit darker, that play along with that woken / broken character, and I think he could honestly just jump right in and be part of the title contender, or even just some guy that fills a spot that has a very interesting storyline like he did in Impact. I mean, he really wasn't anything like the main guy in Impact. He never had the title. He may have, but I don't remember him ever carrying a title. He was just always in an interesting storyline because he had so many interesting ideas.
Right.
So I think it's good. I hope he does, and I hope he doesn't sign with WWE. As a Matt Hardy fan, I love him in WWE. I just don't think right now is a good time for him. He has more opportunity in AEW.
No, I agree, and
that also doesn't mean he can't go to New Japan. Jericho actually just wrestled over in Tokyo against one of New Japan's champions.
Right.
He was over there. So I'm pretty sure AEW is pretty lenient. If he wanted to go to New Japan, he could.
Well, I think they do. They allow them to go back and forth. I think they have a somewhat of an agreement between the two of them. Which is smart. I mean,
which is good.
Yeah, they should do that.
If you want to wrestle, you want to wrestle. Right. You want to make more money, make more money.
More importantly, I think they both know they can take on WWE a little bit better, knowing that they're working together with talent going back and forth. But I think they're a little bit, when it comes to Chris Jericho, I think down the road, and Cody Rhodes, I think they're going to start to be like, okay, our top talent needs to be, we're not going to have them being risked being injured over at New Japan. But like mid-card people, why not? Let the so-called little people go over to New Japan and wrestle over there for a little bit and help get their reputation built. Assuming let's assume Matt Hardy goes to AEW. Do you think he gets a title? You think he's in the title picture right away?
I could see it. I honestly don't even think he needs to be though. I don't think he has to be. I don't think he's one of those guys where he jumps right in and he has to be in the title. Has to be fighting for the title. He has so many interesting storylines, or so he says, that he could perhaps boost someone to get a title match. He could be one of those guys that, and he said that before, that he doesn't mind being the guy that boosts someone to propel them into stardom or whatever the case may be. So he could help someone get a title match. He doesn't necessarily need to be in a title match, and I don't even think he really probably wants to at that point. Yeah, maybe once or twice, but he could easily be one of those guys that's the gatekeeper to help someone get their first title.
Right. But I disagree with that because I would think if that's what he wants his role to be, why wouldn't he do that in WWE right now? He doesn't seem happy with that type.
Because they're not offering that to him.
Yeah, I guess he's not in the title picture. I mean, my opinion.
Well, he's not. Not only is he not in the title picture, he's not even on TV. They put him on TV once just so he could be on Raw for 25 years or something like that. Like they basically just gave him that one shining moment. And they were like, okay, but now you're going to be off TV for the rest of your contract. Which I don't think is fair.
You know my opinion on Matt Hardy. I mean, I like how creative he is with the character. I like how the Broken and then what became the Woken. I like how they've done that. But I've never really liked him in the title picture. I've never really. I don't think he's a good champion. No, I really don't. Good tag team champion, yes. Good. Whatever, but just main champion, definitely not. You can only do tag team for so long. You can only be the Hardys for so long. I'm sorry. Back in the day, back in the 2000s, people can deal with that type of content for a long time. But this day and age, 15 or 20 years later, people's attention span. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just not.
Yeah, but you don't know. I mean, we also don't know if he's going to be a good champion for AEW until he is one. So right. Maybe they put the title on him, see how it works out, and then go from there.
I'm laughing at chat. Mr. Wet with Paul Wright. Get out of here with that. The Big Show.
Said his middle name too.
Was it?
Might as well bring him up.
Paul Donald Wright. That's really his middle name.
It's White. It's White.
Paul Donald Wright. White.
White.
I thought I saw an R there. Paul White. Why was I saying right? I knew that. I knew it was Paul White. Donald. Whoa.
Wow.
Paul Don, come on down. Sure.
No. Speaking of him, bring him up.
Yeah, the Big Show. A couple returns this past cycle week. Can you remember? Because we technically have SmackDown from last week that we have to talk about. But Big Show returned on Monday. Were you a little bit surprised you saw him come out at the end there? Is he really much?
Actually, yeah, he was probably the last person I expected to come out.
2 years, I heard.
I thought. What's that?
He's been gone 2 years. I know that seems hard to believe.
Are you saying the Big Show is actually coming back?
He returned on Monday night. He returned on Monday night. He came out in a tag match at the end. Well,
and he knocked out Seth Rollins with the big right hand.
Now the question is, do you think he stays on for the next couple weeks?
No, he'll probably stay on until WrestleMania and do the Andre the Giant Classic, whatever match that they have at WrestleMania, and then he'll be done. I thought he was supposed to retire last year. I remember listening to a podcast, I think it was Stone Cold's, where he said he was, ready to retire, but if he still's got some gas left in the tank, by all means perform, but he's one of those guys that he doesn't really move around well in the ring, so it doesn't really make sense to keep him around all the time.
The one and done match? I don't think if he's back, I don't think it's to be for long. I think they'll, what's that?
He's back for life.
Mike, if you can't tell, is a huge Big Show fan. But yeah, I mean, I think if he's back, I think it was, in my honest opinion, I bet you it was a cram. They needed to fit someone in at the last minute for the match, and obviously him returning. Maybe they have a WrestleMania storyline for him. It'd be a little too early, but I don't really think I don't think he goes much further than maybe a couple weeks, or maybe what they could do. Maybe they plan on having him taken out in a few weeks. He comes back, the tag team takes him out so they can kind of get their reputation up as being a badass.
Probably the AOP.
Yeah, they destroy
AOP,
the Big Show.
Take him out.
So that's a possibility. But yeah, so that the Big Show came back. Jon Morrison, what do you think about him on SmackDown?
Well, he only said like 5 words, but I guess we'll see when he actually steps into the ring. He's probably one of those guys that they're gonna have fill a spot in the Royal Rumble. I could see.
Oh, for sure. They'll utilize him because he's fresh product. He's fresh content, so they're gonna utilize him for probably about maybe 6 months, and they'll kick him to the curb, like you were talking about before, like Sheldon Benjamin. They'll use him for just a little bit, and that's about it. I mean, I don't know. Speaking of SmackDown, did you think that the Miz is turning heel?
Yes.
You think so? Sure. Really?
Yeah, it's almost. I can almost guarantee it because of the way he was reacting when he when he lost and beat up Kofi Kingston. I mean, he was basically saying, after everything I've done for you guys, blah, 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 blah. That's a classic heel turn, which, honestly, it needs to be done. The Miz is one of the best heels in the company, and I can't stand him as a face because he's so corny. I just think it's hard for him to be a face, where I think as a heel it comes natural to him, and he's a lot better on the mic as a heel, a lot better as a bad guy in the ring. So I think it's good, you know.
I agree. I've always had high expectations for the Miz, and I still believe that he's probably. I mean, I think he can be a great face too, but I think he's a better heel, for sure. It's like, The Rock back in the day when he was.
Oh,
a heel.
Here we go.
Oh, I mean, the Rock made a great heel. He's better as a face, but he made a great heel.
You always compare the Miz to the Rock.
Because I think they're two in the one. I think their wrestling personas are the same.
My thing is can you ever bring up the Miz without bringing up the Rock?
No, because I think they're identical.
I don't think there's a single conversation that we've ever had about the Miz where you haven't brought up the Rock.
I'm just saying. I'm comparing
like,
them.
You can't even talk about the Miz without bringing up the Rock. Like, you can't even.
No. Let me explain.
You say the Miz and you just
something
automatically bring up the Rock.
What I'm explaining to you is that the fact that he went from face to heel, he's a better heel. It's
you
like
could have
The
literally
Rock.
brought up any other
Because that's how close
in
he is to The
WWE
Rock.
history that turned face and heel to face. But you always, whenever you talk about the Miz, it's always The Rock.
Because every time we talk about the Miz, it is almost identical to a story that The Rock did in the past. The Rock went from face to heel. He was very good as a face. He was very good as a heel, but he's better as a face.
Everybody's gone face to heel to face. Everybody's done that. I just don't understand why every single time you talk about the Miz, you have to bring up The Rock.
Because I think there were two.
Every single time.
You laughing over there? Mike's giggling in the back corner. I can see his little head on the screen over here.
I just don't I don't get it. Like, you always, literally every single time you do it. Every single time.
I don't know what to tell you. I think
he knows it's true. He knows it's true. That's the thing. He knows every single time he brings up the Miz's name, The Rock gets mentioned shortly after. You can literally, I'm telling you, Dan, you can literally name any other character in WWE history. They've done the same thing that the Miz did on Friday. The Rock does not need to be brought up every single week, every time you talk about the Miz.
I'm not sure I brought The Rock up every single time I talk about the Miz, but I do find him to be. I do find him to be comparative.
We're gonna make a highlight clip of Ring the Bell podcast week by week, and every single week the Miz gets brought up, The Rock gets brought up shortly after. I can guarantee it. From memory, I have a very good memory, and I can remember every single time you go, the Miz really reminds me of The Rock. And then last week you said, the Miz really reminds me of The Rock. It's like a broken record. Every single time you talk about the Miz, you talk about The Rock.
I just don't think you like how I put those two together and really come up with a great comparison.
I don't really care. I just think it's repetitive. You sound like a guy that has Alzheimer's.
Whoa. I don't even have a response to that one. Raw ratings.
No, it's true.
Raw ratings down a little bit. 2.39 down from 2.4 last week.
You want to know why they're probably down?
It's
because The Rock wasn't on TV this week.
Could be. He's not going to let this go, Steve. When he thinks he's got a great little thing going, he's just going to keep going with it. So he's just going to keep going and going.
I got Mike laughing in the background.
Going and going. Especially, it's like when one person laughs, that encourages him to keep going. All I need is one laugh.
Exactly.
All I needed, Mike giggling in the corner is all he needed to keep Tyler going.
Well, here's the thing: is it also? I know I got to you because you're not saying anything, and I know that
I don't know what to say.
I know that you know that I'm right. That's the thing. You're thinking in your head. You're like, did I really bring up the Miz and The Rock in the same sentence the past 5 weeks?
Not the past 5 weeks, but I do strongly compare the two. I think they're relatively the same development and character. You saw the wedding chapel guy getting tackled by WWE security? What do you think of that one?
Yeah.
This week in the news.
Yeah, I mean, I was the one that brought it up since you forgot to watch Raw this week.
I didn't forget to watch it.
Let's be honest with the people, Dan. Don't lie.
I was here.
Did you watch Raw this week or not?
I saw the highlights and I've read all about it. I was here conducting the production of Retro Monday and all the other shows that we were running on Monday. I was a little preoccupied.
Oh, you don't have DVR?
You got
YouTube
me.
TV doesn't have DVR there?
You got me. I watched the highlights
I
of Raw, and I knew exactly.
I thought it was hilarious. And me and Dan were talking about this earlier. Is that WWE? What they say? They said that it was planned that they wanted to tackle that guy. But in reality, if you look back at it, when I believe it was AJ Styles was actually in the ring, and you just see the camera cut to this guy being tackled in the ring, and I forget what the guy's name is on commentary with the King, but he was just like didn't know what to say, and they just went straight to commercial. So I obviously don't think it was planned. I thought it was hilarious though that WWE doesn't know what personnel that they have in the building, especially a guy that was there for literally a 20-minute segment last week. Which might I add, these segments between Lana and Bobby Lashley and Rusev are very hard to watch, and every single time Lana gets on the mic, I immediately skip it, and then I just skip to where Bobby Lashley and Rusev are talking. I just can't stand their voice.
I have read that the WWE is trying to put a spin out that it was a planned event, which I don't think anyone really believes. Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. I mean, it's not hard to believe, really. The security is not WWE security; they're event security. So they don't necessarily know who's supposed to be in the ring and who's not. And apparently, he jumped the ring too early and got in. And
it definitely looked like he jumped the ring far too early.
Right.
Because you could see him at the background when AJ Styles was going up the ramp.
And they supposedly didn't have the ring ready, and he got in, and I guess it enacted.
And he got
security.
in very weird. He got in from underneath the rope. Like the only time I've ever seen someone do that is if they were actually jumping over the barricade like a pin. So I mean, granted, I don't think the security's in the wrong. I just thought it was hilarious that it was on live TV first off, and they were basically tackling the guy and putting his hands and face down into the mat like he was rushing the ring. But it was, great security, by the way. Great form tackling. They did a great job putting his hands behind his back, I thought. The technique was there. It was just on live TV probably wasn't a really good look for WWE.
No, I agree. I agree on that. I think it just looked ridiculous. And, not only that, God knows what type of action the guy has. To be tackled by security, not only in front of 17,000 people watching, but also if it's televised on TV. I don't know what type of action he has against WWE, but I gotta imagine they're probably trying to make it trying to cover it in the story news to make sure it doesn't look like.
Which I think it's sad that I thought the most entertaining part about that segment was him getting tackled by security.
I'm sure they don't want that to be the main story. That's why they're trying to cover. We want you to remember what we talked about with Bobby Lashley and Lana and Rusev, not what the guy getting tackled in the ring. But that's the news coming out of that segment. I
thought that was clearly the best part of the segment.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. That's the first 35 minutes here of the Ring the Bell podcast live on Insane Games TV. Don't forget, we got the No Look podcast coming up next with your man, goddamn, Tyler Hayes and AC Weezy. Those two are up next right here on the channel, so don't leave when we're done here. They're coming up right a little bit after 6. If you missed any of this episode live on Twitch, you can go to our YouTube channel, watch our full episodes on all of ours, episodes 1 through 5, including this one 6. Right on our YouTube channel, Insane Games TV. We're also live now on Insane Game Facebook Gaming. I went over this with Dave earlier in the week, how many times I'm going to screw up Insane Game TV and Facebook Gaming. It's just like too many of the games and gaming and Facebook and Insane, too much of it. But we are on Facebook Gaming now at Insane Games TV. And of course,
there's never too much gaming, Dan. You own a video game store.
And of course, you can catch us on all the social media, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, all at Insane Games TV. That's what I got for the plug. So let's go into some discussions here. We talked a little bit last week about what wrestlers, we're going to save it for this episode, what wrestlers that we each thought will leave WWE this year and go over and finish 2020 at AEW. So, I don't know how many you got. I got about 5 or 6. Do you want to go one and one back and forth?
Well, I had Matt Hardy. I'll go first because I only had 2.
Yeah,
I could give you more, but I have 2 that I very, very much think are going to happen. And I didn't want to do more just because, a lot of the other ones were kind of iffy. But I can almost guarantee this. Matt Hardy's my first one. I already went over that. My second one is the Revival. Their contract ends this year. I believe I think it's in May. I think that's what I saw around that time, probably a little bit after WrestleMania. But the only reason I would say them is not only are they being put in shitty kind of storylines, they didn't hold the title for that long, and they've also had pushback themselves with WWE officials. So I honestly can see them leaving the company once their contract is up. And honestly, I view them as a better fit in AEW rather than WWE. They're more of the classic wrestling guys as they portray themselves as. And they've already gone and said that they would love to have feuds with the Young Bucks in AEW. Before they were in AEW, they would love to have feuds with the Young Bucks. And I just think it would be a good fit for both of them because honestly, the tag team division isn't the best in WWE. AEW has a lot of tag teams. They actually kind of focus on tag teams in AEW.
Yeah,
they have more tag team matches than single matches, so I think it would really benefit them. Those are my two, Matt Hardy and the Revival. I think it's probably going to happen because they have in their contracts right there 90 days, no compete clause.
For certain ones, I think, like for example, I read that Matt Hardy's that ends March 1st does not have a 90. If they finish out their contracts, I don't think they have a 90-day. I think it's when they get terminated, they have the 90-day no compete. But I could be wrong.
So I could see both of them in AEW by June, then the beginning of the summer.
Okay. I don't know. I can't see the exact date of when their contracts end, but I do know April 30th, 2019. It was reported that they had they were offered 5-year contracts worth $500,000 a year that they turned down. So, WWE's already tried to lock him in April 2019, rewind 10 months down the road, and, I don't know if they...
I mean, honestly, would you want a 5-year contract with the WWE based on what they do to talent?
No.
I mean, unless your name's Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, like, if you're a big name, that makes sense. But if you're a guy that's middle of the pack, not getting a lot of TV time, do you really want a 5-year contract with WWE? I would say give me a 1-year or 2-year and let me decide on based off what happens after those 1 or 2 years.
Right.
That would make more sense.
No, I agree. And I don't know if I would do a 5-year deal myself. So it's kind of, you look at the options. I mean, in this wrestling.
Wait, so if WWE offered you a 5-year contract as a writer, you wouldn't accept it?
As a writer, I would. Yeah. Well, no, there's
you
different
just said you said as yourself. So I'm assuming in your
I
physical
was
condition,
if I
physical
was,
form.
Let me explain. If I was in the Rivals' position and they offered me $500,000 5-year, I'd probably say no.
A lot of money.
Is it? Is it a lot of money? I don't know. I mean,
$500,000 per year? Yeah, that's a lot of money.
The OC got a lot more. I mean, where do you compare the two?
But the OC. Well, I'm assuming you're talking about Carl Anderson and
Right.
Luke Gallows, right?
Right. Yeah.
They've also been around a lot longer, and they've held a lot more championships over wrestling as a whole compared to the Revival. The OC is more worldwide known compared to the Revival, I would say.
But if I'm the Revival, I'm saying, well, I understand that, but in 5 years, I'm going to be a lot more than what we're at now. But see,
but maybe they're not. But here's what I was saying, and this is why I think they would fit better in AEW, is because they're more geared towards wrestling.
Right.
They don't shoot the best promos. They don't.
No.
They're not the flashiest wrestlers. They're more classic wrestling, which is what AEW really offers. They offer that more fundamental wrestling, which is why I think they would fit better in AEW, and that's pretty much that. I think that's why they shouldn't accept the contract. They probably knew that AEW was coming around. They were like, you know what? Let's see how AEW does. Let's see how our contract does, and let's see what storylines WWE puts us in. And then once that's done, we'll see if we want to even sign a contract with them.
If I was in the Revival, if I was going to sign a long-term deal, I would say 5 years, fine. WWE, I mean, it's a good home. The company's not going anywhere in 5 years. I think we all know that. So to sign a 5 year, not a problem. $500,000 a year, that's my concern. And I would say
You don't
Okay.
think that's a lot of money?
I don't think it's a lot.
500,000?
I don't. Why limit yourself? What happens when you become the next Miz? What happens when you become the next DX in 3 years?
Restructure your contract.
Well,
like
you
the NFL
can't if you don't work
players
that in. See, that's what I was about to say. Is that if I was to sign a 5-year deal, fine, no problem with 5 years. But I would want an option after 2 to revisit what my net worth is within the company. You know, if I'm becoming top tier talent after 2 or 3 years, I want my pay adjusted accordingly. I mean, what happens if you're Seth Rollins? You don't think the Shield, when they signed with WWE originally, you don't think they're making under $1 million? I mean, now look at them. Now look at Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. They're probably
They were making under 500,000 probably.
I agree. And what after what happens if they signed a 5-year deal? Big problem.
Restructure.
Well, not
Most
all.
of the time in contracts they have a restructure in the contract.
Not
I mean,
all of them.
you could get lawyers involved. If not, just terminate your contract, wait the 90 days, go to AEW. Like that's the worst that could happen.
Yeah, okay, I agree. But either way, they turned down those offers, which I mean, they're probably thinking that they're at the beginning of their career and they want something more suited to them, I guess, whatever they're looking at. So that's your list. I had a couple of them. I had Matt Hardy. I had the Revival on here, but I kind of looked like, okay, that may be a given. I put Luke Harper. I got maybe a given.
Also a given.
Yeah, so I went with a couple of rare 2. I went with 2. Actually, I went with 3. I even threw in the female.
Wild card.
Okay, Rusev. I can see being gone at the end of the year. I don't know exactly what his contract status is, but I can see him being gone at the end of the year.
His contract ends this year.
Yeah, okay, so I can see him being gone. I mean, he may not like this whole storyline with Lana and Bobby Lashley. You don't know who's really behind the storyline. They could be, they may not be. I can see him being
And
gone.
also the storylines he's been in.
Right.
I mean, all the storylines he's been in have been trash.
They've been awful.
I can't even remember a good Rusev storyline besides when he faced John Cena back in WrestleMania when he first started.
I think
when he was undefeated.
his best storyline was when he debuted. I mean, he's a classic character that I'm sorry.
And he shoots a great promo. He's a great wrestler. He's a great character, but they just don't utilize him.
And to be honest with you, he gets stale quick. I mean, when you come out and you're the Russian guy, and yeah, that's great for a while, but it gets stale quick. It gets a little boring. So I threw him in as my wild card. Amber Moon, I threw in as my wild card.
Ember.
What?
Ember.
Like I always say that. I always forget.
E-M-B-E-R.
Ember Moon, I threw in as a wild card. That I think representing the female roster, I can see her leaving. I mean, if any out of both the men and the female, I can see the female getting disgruntled quicker. I mean, let's look at it. There's only really 3 titles in the women's division. You can get buried very, very quickly in the women's division, very quickly. And look at all the people that deserve the title. Does Charlotte Flair deserve it? Yes. Does Sasha Banks? Yes. Does Bayley? Yes. Does the man Becky Lynch deserve it? Yes. Does Asuka deserve it? Yes. How about she's my favorite one. I can't think of her name. Alexa Bliss.
What does she look like? Oh, there you go. Alexa Bliss?
Alexa Bliss. She deserves it. Am I wrong? She's like a 3-time champ. I mean, so at what point do
I think she's a great champion.
She's great. She's fantastic. Okay? There's not that many belts to keep all of them happy, so where do they go? You know? They're going to get disgruntled very quickly.
I think the women's division in AEW is also kind of weak. They don't have a lot of, I won't say talent, because that's kind of mean, but they don't have a lot of well-known talent.
Yeah, true.
And bringing over someone that was part of WWE and has a household name in wrestling, I think that would be strong. I didn't even think about the women's side. But yeah, I could definitely see Ember Moon, for sure.
Yeah, so I threw her in, and then my other wild card, I'm going on a reach here, Tyler Breeze. I can see him being gone.
So he's going to split with Fandango?
He's been doing the same storyline.
I mean, he is a lot
years.
younger. He's a lot younger.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, has he ever really had a title? No. I mean, I think it's great.
NXT, yeah, for sure.
For a little
NXT.
bit, and then not long, not a while.
He was one of the first ones. I'm just saying.
The NXT champion.
I said one of the first ones. I didn't say he was the first one. I said.
I know he's not the first one, but was he ever the NXT title? Hang on, I'm looking. I want to confirm. You don't think he can leave? I can see him leaving.
It all depends. I mean, like you said last week, this was all contingent on their contracts. Do your research. When is his contract up? Is it up this year? If it is, I could see it as well.
I read that it wasn't known. That's what made me think that he was gonna jump over.
Possible. I even read somewhere that they could see Randy Orton going over to AEW.
Well, Randy
which
Orton,
honestly,
let me stop you. Let me stop you. He signed an extension, so he's in.
Yeah.
He threw out that he was gonna leave, and then they signed him to like a 5-year deal.
Your research was wrong.
What research?
You said last week this was all contingent on you have to do your research based on their contract, what's going on with them.
But who are you talking about? I'm letting you know that.
Tyler Breeze.
No, I'm saying Randy Orton signed an extension months ago.
Oh, Randy Orton.
That's why I was trying to stop you before you said it. That he signed an extension, so he's locked in for WWE.
Although I do think Randy Orton would be pretty cool going into AEW, a different brand. It'd kind of be like Lex Luger coming out for WCW back in the Mall of America in Minneapolis in 1996.
WWE would never let Randy Orton go. Never.
They would never.
Never.
I read this was an article in Forbes when I think AEW first opened, and I was like, that's kind of wishful thinking. You know, I would love to see it because I would love to see how he would do on another brand. But he is WWE through and through for life.
What does Forbes know about WWE?
I mean, Forbes had an article on AEW. I think there was a bunch of different. Actually, Forbes has a bunch of. They have a wrestling contributor actually at Forbes.
Isn't Forbes all about money and business?
Is WWE not a business?
Not only just business. Does he have a Forbes analyst talking about WWE? That makes no sense.
WWE is officially traded stock, publicly owned company. They can talk about WWE.
Talking about the business of WWE, not talking about contract statuses of a wrestler. That's a little absurd.
It makes a lot of sense.
I'm not sure I would get my wrestling.
You just said it yourself. Isn't Forbes about money? Contracts have to do with money. WWE is a business.
If that's how you're going to try to
They
sell
talk
it.
about WWE. That's all I'm saying. They have a contributor at Forbes, and I do sometimes read what they have to say. You're just getting. I'm like on the top rope again and again, swanton bombing you as you're just getting fatigued right now. You're like Glass Joe.
That's a callback. Glass Joe.
That's a callback to Retro Monday with Mike.
The guy's 0-99.
Speaking of wrestling, Mike did get the hands quite a bit in Mike Tyson's Punch Out on Monday night. It was actually very absurd. Very absurd.
I saw.
Okay, he went through the first run.
He put a lot of people down. I have to say, as a person who's played Mike Tyson's Punch Out, Mike did very, very well compared to me.
I don't believe you played Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
I used to always play it every single time.
You might have played it, but there's no way you've ever beat
on the
it.
TV.
I don't believe you've ever beat it.
I played Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
You keep saying you played it, but have you beat it?
No, fuck no, I haven't beat it.
Not many do. Have you?
Not yet. That's what the Retro Monday is for.
All I know is Mike went into the first round. I thought Mike would be fantastic at that. Like, okay, Mike's gonna go in and take the cheeks and all that. He took on 3 losses and had to start over. And he's like, I had to start all over. Well, when you have 3 losses in the bottom of the card, what do you expect? He was just taking losses. They're no big deal.
Cheeks or glory, Mike.
What's that?
I thought this was Cheeks or Glory.
Next time it's gonna be no losses, all knockout.
I don't know. The ball.
I don't know about that.
Who was it? The ball bull.
The ball
Bull is a tough one to get.
The ball bull came out with a big chin and knocked Mike out a few times.
Two punches it took him and knocked Mike out.
It was very absurd.
2, and then Mike couldn't even get up.
I was jamming that controller.
So when are we gonna expect a big pay-per-view matchup with Mike versus Mike Tyson?
Hopefully, if not the next one, the one after for sure.
You're not going to beat it by next Monday?
I think I might. I might at least get to him next time.
We're going to have to analyze the fight on the next podcast.
I can get you a code just in
This
case.
is this is Dan from
There's no cheating, Steve. No.
No, I mean,
He's got to play it all the way through the real way. You can't be throwing any codes in or cheats.
I'm not concerned.
You better not
Mike's
be
been
concerned.
practicing. He's been going at home. He just pretends like he has an NES controller in his hand when he's sleeping at night, and he just does all the cheat codes. Yep. And you know that NES controller is real sweaty, real sweaty.
All,
I haven't practiced.
all I know is at the next podcast, we're going to have to talk about Mike's status playing Mike Tyson's and analyze his pay-per-view match and go from there. Because he was getting the hands pretty good on
You
Monday.
could call it the Mike-a-mania.
Sound is a huge part.
Ah,
of
here we
old
come,
video
excuses.
games like that. You have to react to what you're.
Did
hearing
I
on-
just create something, Mike? The Mike-a-mania. Mike Tyson versus Mike Batista. Who will prevail?
Find
No.
out on Retro Monday.
Find out on Monday. I mean, that is the greatest promo I've ever done right there.
Here we go.
Well, one of them. I think my Dan, this is wrestling technically. I think my greatest promo was back on Behind the Counter days when I Stone Cold Stunner Dalton in the Clearwater store as the opening for the episode, and then sprayed myself with 2 Red Bulls over my face, just like Stone Cold.
I will say Tyler can give out the Stone Cold Stunner. He did. He
Not
took
afraid.
Dalton right down. And down quick, too.
You don't see it coming. It's just like this.
He was
Blink of an eye.
running his mouth and gave him the stunner, and he was down and out.
It was a 1-2.
Logan, we don't stun our employees that often. We don't do the Stone Cold Stunner often. You don't have to worry.
That's why I don't work there anymore, because I got fired shortly after.
Um,
Kid deserved it.
but didn't we have another? Didn't someone else do a move in one of the videos? Wasn't there another wrestling move
No,
done in one?
Jeremy tried dunking, and he fell into the display.
We won't bring that up. That was awful. I don't subject anyone to that type of pain.
These are a lot of inside jokes.
Jeremy's knee buckling right over here on the gate and falling into our displays. What a disaster! I've never
I think
seen anything like it.
it was an old display. It needed to happen.
It was
Tommy
awful.
had that clip ready to pull up at any given moment.
It was awful. Awful. All right. Anything else you want to go over before we end the podcast for tonight?
No, sir.
A couple
Not
things
me.
that we didn't get to, but we'll just push those off to next week. Next week we'll go over a lot of Royal Rumble talk as we head into the Royal Rumble, which is on January 26th. We're actually going to have a watch party right here on the Insane Games TV channel. Tyler, myself, and a few others are going to sit down and watch the pay-per-view. So you can watch us with us while you're watching it at home. That'll be Sunday, January 26th. We got the No Look podcast coming up here next, right here on Insane Games TV. If you missed any of this episode, you can catch us on YouTube at Insane Games TV. You can watch the No Look podcast
You can also
live.
catch it on Twitch too. It's on Twitch, all full episodes. So.
It is on our library on Twitch. You can catch it there as well. No Look is coming up next live right here on Twitch TV and also Facebook Gaming. And then we got Dave finishing out the night with the Weekend Wednesday playing a little Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation 4. So that's all here tonight on the network. Anything else before we close up?
Drop dead.
All right, guys. See you later. And No Look is coming up next.